All right, everybody, welcome back. I am Punch for this one. We are taking a deep dive today into something that I think a lot of you are probably struggling with, especially if you are, just starting to get your business off the ground.
Yeah.
And that's how to choose the right marketing channels.
Oh, yeah. Big one.
Right. Huge. So many options. And we were just talking before we started recording.
Yeah.
Social media, podcasts, articles.
Right. Where do you put your energy?
Exactly. So how do we even begin to narrow it down?
Well, lucky for us, we've got some really insightful sources that kind of lay it all out for us.
Right. Yeah. And actually one of the things that they all seem to agree on, which is really interesting, is that a lot of businesses fall into this trap of picking the wrong channels.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's like they're trying to sell, bathing suits in Antarctica. It just
doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense, right?
You're never going to reach your customer that way.
So how do we avoid making that mistake?
Well, the first thing, and this comes up over and over again in the research, you got to know your audience.
Okay, know your audience. Know our audience. That sounds like, marketing 101.
Right, it does. But the sources emphasize it for a reason. It's not just a catchy slogan.
So there's more to it. Okay.
It's really about understanding where your ideal customer spends their time. What are they reading? What are they watching? What are they listening to? Once you have that figured out, then you can start to think about, okay, what channels align with that?
So you got to put yourself in their shoes.
Exactly. Imagine yourself as that ideal customer and think about your own media consumption habits.
Right. Okay, so we've got to figure out where they hang out. So give us some examples. What are some specific channels that we can think about?
Well, one example the sources mentioned that's really popular these days, particularly with younger demographics, Gen Z, millennials, are visual platforms like TikTok and Instagram.
Ah, okay.
But you have to really think about how you present your content there. Quick cuts, engaging visuals, you really got to capture attention fast.
So it's got to be tailored to that specific platform.
Yeah, exactly. If we're talking to a more professional audience, though,
yeah,
LinkedIn becomes much more important.
Okay.
Think about thought leadership articles, sharing industry insights, that kind of thing.
Got it. So it's not just about being on the platform. You got to speak the language, right? Like use the right tone, the right format, the right everything. Okay, so we've nailed down our audience, we've found the right platforms, but even with all of that, the sources really hit on this idea of resource assessments. What do they mean by that?
Right. Even the best marketing channel in the world is useless if you don't have the resources to manage it effectively.
Right.
And this is something a lot of people don't think about. Time, money, people, all that factors in.
Right. Because it's easy to get excited about like every shiny new platform. And you're like, oh, I got to be on that. I got to be doing this.
It's like anything else. Spreading yourself too thin just leads to mediocre results everywhere.
Right. So what's the solution then?
Well, one source suggests that you focus on just one or two channels to start and really get good at them, become a master of those channels. And then once you've got a solid foundation, you can start to think about branching out.
Okay, so that's interesting. So like maybe, I don't know, maybe you're a small business owner just starting out. You might be better off just focusing on like your Instagram or your email list or something like that.
Exactly. Nail those down first, build your audience there, and then slowly expand as you grow.
So it's like that whole thing about like you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Right. And it's better to be amazing at a couple of things than just okay at a lot of things.
Okay, I like that. So we've got the who and how much figured out. But what about the what?
What do you mean?
Well, you've got to actually offer something valuable, right? That's what the sources keep saying.
Oh, right, of course. This is huge. It's not enough to just show up and shout about how great your product is.
Right.
People can smell that a mile away. You have to provide content that genuinely resonates with your audience. Content that's informative, entertaining, inspiring. Something that makes them want to come back for more.
So how do you do that? That sounds kind of vague.
Well, one way to think about it is to focus on building relationships, not just transactions. Think about it like you're having a conversation with your ideal customer. What are their pain points? What are their aspirations? How can you help them achieve their goals? And then create content that addresses those things.
So it's more about like giving than taking.
Exactly. It's about providing value first. And then once you've established that trust and authority, the sales will come naturally.
That makes a lot of sense. But, it makes me wonder, how do you actually measure the success of all of this? I mean, it can't just be about likes and follows, right?
Right. You have to define your goals first. What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to drive traffic to your website, generate leads, increase brand awareness? Once you know what you're aiming for, you can start to track the metrics that matter most.
So what kind of metrics are we talking about here?
Well, it depends on your goals, of course, but some common ones include website traffic, email signups, social media engagement, and conversion rates. And it's not just about the numbers themselves, it's also about looking for trends and patterns.
So like if you see a spike in engagement after you post a certain type of content, that's a good sign that you're on the right track.
Exactly. Or if you see a dip in website traffic after you launch a new campaign, that's a sign that you might need to tweak your strategy.
Right. So it's all about like paying attention to the data and then using it to make informed decisions.
Exactly. It's a continuous process of testing, learning, and adjusting.
So to sum it all up then, choosing the right marketing channels comes down to a few key things. Knowing your audience, figuring out what resources you have to work with, and making sure you're offering something valuable that actually resonates with people.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But there's one thing I'm still curious about. Like, let's say you've done all of that. We've picked your channels, you're creating amazing content, you're seeing results. How do you stay ahead of the curve? I mean, the digital landscape is constantly changing. New platforms are popping up all the time.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, there's no easy answer, but I think the key is to stay curious, to be constantly learning and experimenting. Don't be afraid to try new things, and be prepared to adapt your strategy as the market evolves.
Because what works today might not work tomorrow.
Exactly.
Well, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today. As always, we hope this deep dive has been helpful.
Yeah, lots to chew on.
Until next time.
See ya! 10CO2.